This is the Board of Health, and pursuant to Chapter 2 of Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy by remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless required by law. This meeting will be recorded by PAC TV. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing Duxbury Government Access Channels, which is Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can visit www.pactv.org/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. I will call to order. And our first order of business is to vote to appoint Lauren Haish as interim health agent. Tracy is on leave right now, and we would like to appoint Lauren as the interim health agent.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
I'm having trouble hearing for some reason.
Okay. Okay.
I've got a hearing aid on. It's
Okay. You're okay for voting for Lauren, right? You're okay for voting for Lauren?
yeah.
Okay, great. So moved, unanimous. So our second order of business is a discussion between the board regarding the following topics. Local rules regarding cesspools. So I'll just stop there and see if there's any comments. So we're going to talk about cesspools right now. Do you have any comments about the cesspools?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have any comments about the cesspools? We're on 2A. Do you have a comment about that? We're going to go by...
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have comments about 2A, B, and C.
Okay. 2B is local rules regarding upgrading systems that do not meet Zone 2, Title 5 acre and bedroom requirements. And C is discussion around when to begin planning to meet the new Title 5 NSA rules and how that may affect Duxbury in the future.
Yes, and it's all, I guess the problem, or a lot of the problem, is described in the Duxbury Water Quality Report. And in that report, it talks about nitrogen-sensitive areas. So these three issues all involve nitrogen-sensitive areas. Essentially, in the report, on the end of the report, there's a description of by the Massachusetts DEP about nitrogen-sensitive areas, and there's a suggestion that something could be done by someone, possibly. It says the town of Duxbury may consider additional measures to reduce nitrogen pollution. I think that the future is now. And I talked about this 6 months ago. I suggested that one thing that Duxbury could do is that we have local regulations right now that says that a cesspool is, if we know about a cesspool, that it's failed. But there's nothing in the regulations that say, what should we do about it, other than reverting back to Title V and their regulations. So I think that the Board of Health should take some steps to change the local regulations to do something about cesspools. Two things. Number one is find them. Right now we know of some that are located very, very close to Duxbury Bay. But we don't know The only way we find out about cesspools officially is to wait until a house is sold, and then when the house is sold, we find out about the cesspool. And then there's a 2-year wait to fix that problem. And I think that our local regulation, I think that we need to do something in terms of our local regulation that will say, we will try to survey for these. In other words, not wait until a house is sold on Washington Street or Powder Point or Standish Shores or any other locations that really border our Duxbury Bay, that our first priority should be to find cesspools and then to do something about getting them fixed faster. And I believe that we have the board here, if there's a consensus, and apparently there hasn't been a consensus, you know. I've talked about this, and there hasn't been a consensus, I don't think, that we should do anything. Then the other issue is we have Zone 2 nitrogen sensitive areas in Duxbury where a house has been sold, and then when this house was built 20 or 30 or 40 years ago before Title V and the Zone 2 regulations regarding acreage size and the number of bedrooms, we have allowed these houses to be sold and allow septic systems to be installed that there's no increase in flow. It's a 5-bedroom house. It's on an acre of land. It should only be a 4-bedroom house. So I think that what we can do is suggest, now, when we take a look at what the Mass DEP has done in the Cape regarding national sensitive areas, what they have done is said, when this happens, when things like this happen, the minimum is that new technology should be used. And they describe, okay, so now let's go to the other issue, and that's the changes that have been made to Title V. Right, a year ago, Title V was massively changed on the Cape to begin to protect nitrogen-sensitive areas. This report shows that Duxbury is considered to be in this nitrogen-sensitive area, and there is a possibility, and in fact the DEP told us that we should begin planning right now to execute these new Title V changes. So I think that rather than sit around and wait for the DEP and the state to tell us what to do, that if we really were serious about this nitrogen sensitive areas in Duxbury, we could put into our local rules the Title V changes that have been implemented in the Cape. We know that someday this is going to happen here in Duxbury. And I'm saying that we could be proactive and begin and do something in our local rule, that this Board of Health has a lot of power to get things done and has a responsibility to begin a more proactive stance in terms of these nitrogen sensitive areas. That's all I've got to, and this is not the first time that we've talked about this. We've talked about this over the last few months. Maybe a year ago, the DEP did some kind of presentation, not that none of us here attended, with our health agent to discuss these changes that were taking place in the Cape. So now I don't know, I mean, if there's some consensus, I would be willing to start working on some regulations that we could bring before a hearing. We'd have to have a hearing to do our changes. But if there's no consensus, if this board continues to not have a desire to do anything, then I don't see any reason to bring these before the board, because I don't want to bring them before the board and then have the board say, no, that's not part of our responsibility. So that's why I asked for these item number 2 here to be on the agenda.
Thank you. We appreciate your thoughts.
Huh?
We appreciate your thoughts on that. We appreciate your thoughts.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your
Oh.
bringing this up and your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm not so sure that we're not interested. I guess, I'm just from a practical point of view, we'd have to think about how this would happen. Because, what's happening now is the sale of the house triggers the inspection, we find the issues, and, we go about addressing them. But sounds like you're talking about requiring like the cesspools to be fixed even if the house is not being sold. Is that correct? So it's just find them all, have the owners fix them?
Well, right now, our local board says, our local rules say that if a cesspool is discovered some way, it fails.
Right.
It's an automatic failing.
Yeah.
And Title V says, if you have a failure, you got to get it fixed in 2 years.
Right.
What I'd like to do is say, number one, we want to fix it sooner. We don't want to wait 2 years. We want to get started on it in 6 months or a year. In other words, we enhanced the efforts to get rid of these cesspools, because our thinking is they're a problem. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had it in the first place. And this local rule, I think, was put in maybe in 2012 or 13. I'm not sure when it was done, when the Board of Health did it. So I think then the next issue is that the only time we find a cesspool is when a house is sold. And
Right.
and there's a Title V examination. And I'm saying, if we know about cesspools, we ought to fail them right now, and then start replacing them. And I think we should be replacing them with best technology, because that's what the new Title V rules say. The new Title V rules say if you're in a nitrogen-sensitive area, you should be using the best technology. It's just that that's only effective for the Cape. But this report here shows Duxbury as part of the Cape. So yeah, so that's.
Just identify yourself for the record, podium, okay.
Susan Schofield, James Road. I was the one who requested that you meet in person, and I really appreciate it, so thank you very much. You bring up some great points. I fear for people that if we just, first of all, how are you going to identify all the cesspools? A lot of people might not be able to afford to deal with the cesspool, so they might need help with that. A lot of people in those areas, if it's a multi-generational a house that's been in a home that's been with the same family for generations, their taxes have gone up, and maybe they're just trying to keep that house. And I understand the importance of maintaining the bay and all of that. The other part that I bring up, is it fair just to pick on the houses just along the bay? What about all the other properties in town? It all flows into our water system one way or the other. So I don't even know if that would be okay, just to go after the homes along the waterfront or whatever in that. So, I think it's an interesting concept. I also wonder if we just, you talk about the nitrogen, and this is a separate issue, where we're all spraying our lawns, and that's increasing the nitrogen in the bay. Peter Quigley, and I can't remember his counterpart, Brian Glenn, and our selectman was there. He did a great presentation at the selectmen's meeting about our water quality in the bay. So this is like a really large issue. I know the cesspools and all of that, and that's on the agenda. I believe it's all connected, and I think there needs to be a partnership with that. And I applaud you for looking at this, and I think it's really serious. But that's what I just wanted to mention, those points.
Thank you. So I know we've been talking about the cesspool issue for a number of years. We've been 17 talking about the cesspool. As long you've been here longer, 17 years. And I think the first part is that we have really no way to proactively identify it. So that's the first part. So people would have to say, I have a cesspool, right? And then I think your point is well taken about the costs. The costs are, depending on where you are, can be very expensive. They're expensive anyways, but if you're in the Bay Area, if you're on Power Point, et cetera, it's going to be that much more expensive. I think it's worth continuing to talk about it, right? So once you will have to have resources to identify it, because some people might come forth and identify, but we have to have some sort of mechanism to do that, which we don't have right now. But I think it's still worthy of keeping the conversation going. So what we were saying is that there's no easy way to identify the cesspools right now. And, certainly when the house goes up for sale and there are inspections, et cetera. And besides that, you need resources to be able to identify them. And then as Ms. Schofield mentioned, it is really can be very expensive to mitigate the cesspool.
Are there other towns that you're aware of that have addressed this somehow?
I'm sorry, I really haven't heard.
Do you have a town or that is maybe doing this successfully that we could use as a model to understand things from their perspective? Is there a town that's doing this right now that we might be able to get some more information about? Lauren, do you know the answer to that?
Aside from the Cape, I'm not sure.
Like in our area?
But I can ask in our,
I'm also wondering what the Board of Selectmen think about this.
I don't know, Ms. Selectman Glennon, I don't know if you'd care to comment on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Speaking only for myself, and I'm not speaking for the board because we haven't brought this up, we don't have a position. We're certainly concerned about the health of the bay. One thing I would be interested in knowing if we were to initiate some sort of town-wide program, to your point, Madam Chair, would be something along the lines of, is there an underlying health issue, an imminent health issue that needs to be addressed before the systems would otherwise be addressed through the ordinary sales and inspection process. So if we're talking about maybe an overabundance, so to speak, of cesspools in either a certain area or a certain in a certain sensitivity, that would be something I, as a member of the Select Board, would be interested in knowing. I'm not aware of a specific problem with, well, I mean, cesspools obviously are not preferred, but they do exist and they will be phased out over time. But to answer the question of, what is the Select Board's position, I think my colleagues would also be interested in knowing if there's data that would support doing something beyond what's already required under Title V and the local regulations. Does that answer your question?
So Absolutely interested in knowing about the cesspools, but how big is the problem? We don't have any information or data to know how many cesspools do we have? We have X amount of houses in Duxbury, how many cesspools? We just don't have that data to make the next good decision.
Well, in terms of the changes that have been implemented in Title V for the Cape, it's a huge problem. Huge, because it's requiring that all septic systems be it says that within the next 5 years, I believe it is, that every septic system be upgraded to the best technology in order to produce, in order to enhance the protection of nitrogen-sensitive areas. And it also gives an option to a town to, rather than implement this, implement a strategy over the next 20 years, I believe it is, that would result in a sewer system or something similar to a sewer system, which is massive. That's so, and there are a lot of towns that have chosen that option. So there's a lot of planning that has to be done and a lot of expense involved. Right now, I've been reading in Clipper about a lot of planning that's being taking place for the next 10 years, let's say, and I have not seen one word about this, nothing. And we talked to the DEP about this. We had them come to this meeting. They from a remote point of view, and they said Duxbury probably ought to start doing some planning. They told us that. I guess I am trying to initiate some of the planning, at least some of the planning. So, I mean, I'm trying to get Duxbury to recognize that we are faced right now with the nitrogen issue. The report said we are. And the report says we got to make sure that we take the necessary steps to protect this bay. And that it's a major, major resource to Duxbury, as well as the ponds in Duxbury, Island Creek Pond and Round Pond and Pine Lake, and all the waters in Duxbury are affected by nitrogen. And we see it happening with the algae and things like that. And so I'm suggesting that the board here can take steps to initiate some action, assuming that the rest of the town is ready to go along with it. I mean, I don't think that the board can, especially for this, the changes to Title V, I don't think the board can start acting on its own. It's such a massive issue.
So would you see our next, Lauren, I think it'd be useful to get some more information, some information gathering. Lauren, with her peers on the South Shore, I'd be interested in, she's willing to gather some information for us.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that as a next step?
Well, that's
Or how do you feel
fine.
about that?
Yeah, I have a question too. I mean,
I'd
'cause-
like to see us do something.
Okay.
yeah, in terms of the cesspools, I mean, we don't know how many there are.
There's feel, think, act. I think it's time for us to start. Well, there's the thinking and then the action. And we all feel the nitrogen problem,
Right.
and we need to step into the next phase.
So, yeah, I was going to add, I mean, I think, scoping out the problem is part of it. So is there like a registry of septic systems? They all have to be registered, right? So do we know how many septic systems there are in Duxbury?
So I've been working actually with the grant committee at having all of our septic files digitized. And so in going through that process, there's roughly 5,500, a little over that, of parcels with houses on it. And this is a rough estimate.
Yeah.
But without going through each single file, it's hard to tell if there's actually a true septic system. And the way that I've learned is that if there is not a file for an address, it's a cesspool. We wouldn't have any information on it. The other thing I'd like to point out too is that in our supplemental rules and regulations, any addition to a property over 50 square feet, and that includes an in-ground pool, triggers a Title V inspection, and we hold up that building permit until we have that. So it's another way to sort of find if there's cesspools, but it's a little bit of an undertaking that I'm wondering if maybe we could get an intern to maybe go through the files and
Yeah.
help. 'Cause yeah.
Well, kind of what I was thinking is, I mean, it sounds like we know how many houses or parcels there are, right? And so if you said there were 5,550 parcels, and we knew there are 5,500 septic systems, we know there cannot be more than 50 cesspools.
Right.
Or if there's 5,000, we know there cannot be more than 550. I mean, some of them are gonna not have them, obviously, but it can't be bigger than the
Right.
subtraction. So at least it would give you some sense of the
If I were
scope.
gonna guess, I would say maybe, I don't even want to put a number on it. I don't think that there are too many left, but I'm not sure. I mean, I know
Oh, right.
everything out on the beach is all tied to the Marshfield, so, treatment plant, so we don't have to worry about those. It's just hard to pinpoint that. How many?
How long do you think this process of digitalizing all those records might take, roundabout?
Depending on which town they start with, because there's 5 towns that are gonna do that in our grant group. It could take up to 3 months, because they'll do batches at a time. They're not gonna take everything.
Well, 3 months isn't bad.
Right. And that, we're still gonna keep our paper files, obviously, too, but this just helps us have everything on a hard drive for the town.
So would it still necessitate somebody, you couldn't sort, you'd still have to go, even if it's digitized, you'd have to go
I
through
think you will
every...
be able to sort,
Oh, you will?
you know,
Okay, all right.
the word cesspool, and that could maybe
Sort of like an AI thing, huh? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
filter it out that way. It would give us a good rough idea.
Well, then that's great. Did you hear what you said? In the grant that we have, they're going to take our records and digitize them, and they're going to be able to sort them, and we'll have a better sense of the cesspool situation. I'm not sure when they're going to start, but when they start, it takes 3 months. Is that right?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah.
In terms of the local regulations, there's no, assuming that 2C is going to happen, there's no reason why we couldn't have a local regulation right now that says any system that's put in from now on, or whenever we've got to have a hearing and everything, uses the best technology available, because that's what the regulations of Title V say. That's what they say. So if somebody right now, today, is putting in a new system, and this comes along in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, the new Title V regulations, and it includes Duxbury. Those people that have put in that new system, if we don't choose to do a sewer system. They're going to have to replace that system with the best technology. So we either agree with this right here, or we don't. And if we agree with it, we can start right now, having a hearing and saying, all right, all new septic systems will be the best. I don't know where, I don't know what the best technology is, and they don't say it. There's a lot of, DEP says it. The Mass DEP says what the best technology is. And it changes from year to year as the technology is improved. I mean, we know it. We sit here and we see it all the time, every day. Every month when we meet, we see new technology coming in to certain systems that otherwise wouldn't meet all the criteria that Title V has. And we require these systems to have it. I'm just saying we require it to everybody to have it when they're putting in a new system.
So I think Lauren's going to get some information from her peers. We're going to digitize the system so we'll know or have a better sense of the cesspools, right? And then we're going to keep on talking about it.
Yeah. And
We need more information.
And then when that cesspool is replaced, we use new technology.
Well, we need more
I mean,
information, what that means. Well, it could
There's
be
got to be
anything.
some reason that Title V, the DEP, when they put together the new Title V rules for the Cape, it's written all the way through everywhere you read, it says, use new technology. And it requires that new technology be used in those towns that have not chosen to go the other way.
I understood, but we have to have more information about what new technology means, right? Is that a
Yeah,
Presby
okay.
system? Is it whatever, right?
Madam Chair, so they do refer to them as IA systems, innovative and alternative nitrogen reducing systems. But the alternative for a town as a whole is that they could apply for a watershed permit. So that should probably be in the discussion as well. I'm not sure what that entails. But that is all guided by DEP when the time comes.
Did you hear what you said about applying for a watershed permit? Okay. So I think,
I don't want to beat a dead horse.
okay. So we're going to do information gathering, right? Get some more
Yeah.
information, keep it
Yeah.
on the agenda. And I think the thing we can be very, I know I'm thrilled about the digitation and also the, the ability to sort, and we'll have a better sense of the cesspools. Now, of course, we haven't decided what we're going to do with these cesspools, but at least we'll know they're,
An idea.
we think we'll have an idea. Yeah, better than we do now.
Okay.
Okay. So, any other comments?
No, I think that's all very reasonable.
All right, going on to item number 3, it's continued discussion with the Duxbury Safe Water Committee regarding concerns to the town's public water supply.
So I don't see Becky or Tanya on, and I know Melissa is usually our liaison for that, who's not here either. So I don't have an update on where things are with that.
Okay, so we'll wait for an update next month. All right, going on to our 4th item, Lynn Greenwood to discuss citizens' concerns and testimonies regarding COVID and other vaccines.
Hi, Lynn Greenwood. So 393 Tremont. So we have 2 people. One's supposed to be here, but she's actually We're hoping she shows up. She's in the hospital dealing with her injuries as we speak.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So, I know, can't make it up. But hopefully, we'll hear from her and we'll know.
Possible she was admitted after the EG today.
Yeah.
COVID injury.
Oh, my.
But we do have one person online. And if I could just follow up one thing on the Lyme issue that we brought, that kind of came up last week. And I know, or last month, I'm sorry. Is it possible just one follow-up question on the Lyme?
I would love to, but it's not on the agenda.
Okay,
Yeah, and we're-
thank
But,
you. All right, so we'll let Donna go and then hopefully we'll hear from the other
okay.
person by the time she's done.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Donna Rodriguez. I'm a resident of Plymouth, Massachusetts, and as such, I'm here to speak with you under the Regional Public Health Excellence Grant. I'm also a past resident of Duxbury, a family who have been or are current residents of Duxbury nonstop since the 1940s, so Duxbury is really our second home. I'm joining tonight's meeting to talk to you about a debilitating and chronic health condition I have, which just can't be seen. I have an inflammatory autoimmune disorder with moderate to severe small fiber neuropathy. It started in November 2021, and it's really changed my life dramatically. It started literally 13 days after receiving my third Moderna COVID vaccine. On Thanksgiving Day, after dinner with my family, we were sitting quietly at the table, and suddenly it felt like my legs had gone to sleep. I had painful pins and needles on my lower legs and numbness. Shaking them or standing didn't bring them back to normal. And literally over the next couple of months, additional symptoms emerged, and it was overwhelming. And they included numbness, painful tingling and burning in my feet, my legs, my thighs, my stomach, my hands, my arms, and even came up as far as my face, 24 hours a day. Feeling like my feet and my toes were frozen blocks of ice. Charley horses in my calves when I was sleeping at night. Feelings of incredible extreme cold throughout my whole body. Joint pain that was so severe, it was difficult for me to perform simple tasks and activities like showering, getting dressed, writing with my hands, and closing my car door. My feet fell off literally fell off my pedal when I was driving sometimes. I had eczema-like rashes on my hands. I had severe GI symptoms, including vomiting and diarrhea, hair loss, sleep disturbances, bleeding after menopause, severe full body inflammation, extreme fatigue, brain fog, episodes of intense sweating and skin flushing, dramatic unexplained weight loss. I lost 60 pounds in 3 months, and headaches. It took 11 months, 7 doctors, countless tests, and thousands of dollars in co-pays to get a diagnosis. I honestly thought I had lupus until a rheumatologist who had been with the lupus clinic at Beth Israel in Boston for over 35 years told me I didn't have it. He showed me a study from the National Institute of Health about COVID vaccine injury and said he believed I had a COVID vaccine injury. And that was in August of 2022. Since then, that diagnosis has been confirmed by 2 neurologists and another rheumatologist. But 22 months later, 4 additional doctors, multiple therapies, and incredible life changes later, I still have severe internal inflammation, autoimmune symptoms, GI symptoms, sleep disturbance, extreme fatigue, and incredibly painful neuropathy 24 hours a day. I'm on the maximum dose of 2 medications for nerve pain. I take 9 different vitamins and supplements every single day, but my pain level is 4 to 5 on a good day. My doctors have recommended something called IVIG treatments. These are infusions of antibodies. The idea is that my immune system reacted so well to the vaccines that it can't turn itself off, and my body is literally attacking itself. IVIG would help to return my immune system to its previous function, allowing my body to eventually recover. My insurance company has refused to pay for the treatments, saying it's not deemed medically necessary. And this is because my diagnosis does not exist. The CDC, even today, does not have coding for COVID vaccine injury, and the FDA, therefore, doesn't have any recommended treatment. So my insurance company can say that they don't need to cover treatments for this diagnosis. We've appealed this finding, we were denied again. My neurologist shared all of the existing studies showing how this treatment was effective for my symptoms with my diagnosis. But my insurance company said these studies were anecdotal because there isn't coding, there isn't FDA regulations, and therefore they denied us again. As a result, my neurologists currently have a Band-Aid form of therapy for me. I'm literally their first patient with this diagnosis, and they don't know what to do outside of traditional treatments for traditional diagnoses versus dealing with the needs of my novel diagnosis. Last fall, I had an appointment with neurologists at Boston Medical Center. I was told that their team had experience with vaccine injury, so I made sure that I got a referral and got in. I met with 2 neurologists, and they told me that they really don't have that. They said that there's nothing else that they could offer. The medical industry is unprepared and untrained to deal with COVID vaccine injury. And don't even get them started on the problems with insurance companies being able to deny needed treatments that doctors prescribe for their patients. So today, that's where I am. I have a Band-Aid that doesn't take away my pain or my symptoms. My insurance company is able to deny the treatments that have been working for others, and there's nothing being done to change it. I live within 1 hour of the most well-respected, one of the most well-respected medical communities in the world. Excuse me. But I can't get an appointment with a doctor who can effectively treat me. I followed the guidelines. I was vaccinated. My family was vaccinated. I was injured, and I'm not being recognized. I'm not getting access to treatments that can make a significant difference in my health and in my life and in the life of my family. It took us less than a year to develop vaccines against COVID, but 3 years later, we're still not dealing with the consequences. We're not talking openly or honestly about injuries or caring for the people who are dealing with the reality of being injured. And I'm here today because we all need to learn from this. We can't pretend this and that I don't or other people like me don't exist. So I know it's going to take our towns, our region, our state, and our federal government to be aware of injuries and the issues that are real and present, and be willing to make changes for the future of our families and our communities. I'm sorry, to find ways to minimize further injuries, to care for people who've been injured, and to allow personal choice to play a larger role in future vaccine considerations. I really thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would be happy to be a part of any solutions moving forward for our region and our state. Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I know that takes a lot of courage to share that, and very sorry to hear about all the things you've gone through, but appreciate your sharing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I wonder, have we talked to our legislature, or has there been any other, seems like political process might be another avenue to get this information, and perhaps others that might be in the same circumstance as you?
I can only speak for myself, but I've reached out to all of our legislators, and there is an organization called react19.org that is working on a national basis along with organizations internationally to make changes. So when I say it's local, state, national, I know that our local boards may not be able to make changes when it comes to getting care for people like me, but where our local boards can really play a part is being aware, learning about what's happening in your communities, and then hopefully being able to make informed decisions moving forward about what you might choose to do in the future in asking people to be vaccinated or giving them the personal choice in being vaccinated. Every opportunity I have to speak, I've spoken at the State House multiple times. I've reached out to my national legislators. I've spoken nationally as well. Anything and everything I can do, I'm willing to be a part of. And I'll be honest, I made the choice to be vaccinated. And given the information I had at the time, again, I would make the same choice for my family's health, for my community's health, for my health. I'm part of that small percentage of people who've been injured. But that's a reality, and we all need to understand that that is a reality and be able to be informed and share that information so that we can all make informed choices moving forward. And that's where I think it's really important to speak locally.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know where the, I mean, I know there's been some discussions in the past, sort of at a federal level, about a vaccine injury program funding. So, I mean, I clearly, but it hasn't come to fruition, I know. So, I mean, clearly with any kind of medical treatment, there's side effects. I mean, there's nothing that's not harmless, right? So I think that's, I mean, I would certainly support that. But again, that's a much broader kind of federal or potentially even state project. But I don't know how we push that forward, move that forward. It's more of a political.
I guess Donna was very good too when she spoke at our last event that we had for the State House. But we've been to the State House many times. That's all I do is go to State House. I was there all last Friday. There's so many people that are injured that go up there and speak to them, but they're not listening. So there's a very small percentage of the, we're lucky our Senator O'Connor is standing behind us. There's about, at this point, maybe 10 senators or reps that are open to listen. We don't have a rep, sorry. The reason why it has to also, all this stuff has to be aware at this level, because this is the community that we live in, and we now have a epidemiologist that's looking at Maven, because I kept hearing her say Maven, and it's not coded, so she'll never see this in Maven. So that's why, just to bring that to everyone's attention, because it'll never show up in Maven. And if that's what the epidemiologist is looking at. So it's things like that where we have to get more educated so that we can help the people that are injured and not in the community. And so that's why we're trying to bring it more local, because the State House really has been we'll continue to go to the State House.
And if I may add, again, for me to speak locally is really just to be able to testify as one individual in our communities, that hopefully if there are future decisions that need to be made, there might be the ability for people to know about folks like me, to hear more about that, to allow for further discussion. It was a traumatic experience for all of us, obviously, for our entire world, but to be able to include what we've learned in making future decisions, especially when it comes to personal choice, for people to make the decisions that they feel are best for themselves and their families. And then in the end, to recognize that, yes, in every group of people who are vaccinated, there are going to be some small number of people who are injured. And just being able to treat them and give them the treatment they deserve in order to hopefully recover, and if not, at least deal effectively with their symptoms so they can at least have the best quality of life they can.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? Do we know if VAERS is reported to Maven? Is that something that maybe we could look into? Because I'm not sure those two systems are connected. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's a question to ask.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
I don't know. I don't either. And there's also the VSafe. VSafe was created. Do you know what the VSafe that was created? Particularly for this, there was 10 million people that were who put into that. The injury rate with those 10 million people was 8% for like severe injury was 8% on the VSafe. Yeah, well, there's a lot you can talk about if you wanted to get educated on how VSafe worked. It was, so that's why we're just trying to make it so that everybody's more aware in the community. I find when Donna first spoke, a lot of her injuries was what I experienced when I had Lyme disease. When people speak up about their injuries, maybe somebody else will realize that, oh, all this happened to me. That's what we find when people start talking about what happened to them, that other people realize, oh, that's something that I'm experiencing as well. There's a lot of that. So it's just good to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of syndromes, illnesses, whatever you want to kind of consider them, that are probably autoimmune related or triggered, and various things can trigger them, right? So that's why the symptoms can be somewhat similar across different types.
Right. Right. So, and one of the things like with Lyme, it generally attacks the weakest part of your body. And it's similar with vaccine injury. It seems to attack the weakest part of your body. There's some similarities. That's kind of how I got into this. So, is Donna? She was going to try to log on. The other Donna. There.
My name is Meredith Gammons. I'm on Carr Road in Duxbury. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, yeah.
I talked to you at the last month's meeting on a hand wave and shared with you I am like Donna. Same place, same things, have testified at the State House. I just want to show you before I start on my real concern is I have a notebook of family, people we know in Duxbury and others, and all the Ds are Duxbury people that either have died suddenly or from something related to the COVID vaccines. And all the Ds on this page are injured. And then I go on to family members and others, and I have more Duxbury people. So just so you're aware, according to the VAERS reports and the doctors at the CDC and our Kevin McKernan in Massachusetts, we have up to probably 30 to 40% of the population injured from the COVID vaccines. So it's not obscure. I'm a nurse. I was trained in public health. I did visiting nursing in Plymouth. I did pediatrics, OB. So I have a background in medicine. I've done a lot of different things. I was a case manager at Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, so I know insurance. I just want to share a couple of concerns I have with you because we're coming up on the fall season of flu vaccinations, RSV, COVID's going to be hit again with another booster. We're on to 10. Some of them they're trying to combine. None of us got informed consent, fully informed consent. Pfizer hid their 9 pages. So RSV has been found, and that's coming up in the fall. There's a study out from the CDC that elders are of increased chances of Guillain-Barré, which we had a Duxbury member die of, our school nurse, Maureen Saunders, who was in our school system for years, died last summer from a severe, severe case of Guillain-Barré that hit her following her COVID vaccines. Her family's devastated. Also, Pfizer has been linked to preterm births when they gave RSVs in the trial to the pregnant moms. It also can cause early births, as I said, preterm births, and warnings from scientists in a French study say that no newborn should be getting RSV vaccines. The rate of deaths in their study have increased exponentially just from the vaccine. We all have antibodies to RSV. It's been around for decades. Our grandparents had RSV. Our parents had RSV. We've had RSV. Our children have had RSV. We get it every year. We all have antibodies to it. But our bodies are not recognizing it, and RSV vaccines are mRNA vaccines, the same as COVID. So we're going to see, and especially if they're combined with the COVID. We had sudden death in Scituate a couple of weeks ago of the assistant lacrosse coach on the field. His son's the star of the team, right in front of the children. Another assistant on that team committed suicide 2 weeks before. We know there's brain inflammation. So I think as we're offering clinics, if we're offering them at the senior center and things like that, these are things we have to keep in mind about the liability. And they just came out recently with, we can sue government agencies. So I think these are all things we have to think about, the safety and the full. Pfizer reports fail to disclose to pregnant women in their potential risks in their vaccine trials with pregnancy. 2 years ago, they were actively studying premature births and as adverse events of special interest, and they never informed the pregnant moms in that study. So there's lots of secrecy, and we need to be aware of what's going down. A similar company who was using the same drug in another trial was shut down, but Pfizer wasn't. Follow the money. I guess my major concern is what we're seeing. I know, just as anecdotally, every older person that I know that got an RSV shot this winter got RSV within the first couple of weeks, and several were hospitalized. Just like COVID transmitted, it didn't stop anything. Our immune systems have been compromised with the COVID vaccines, and now they're not recognizing when people are getting other things. It's attacking our bodies. So there's a lot to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Right, any further comments around that? Any further comments about the vaccines?
No.
Okay. You want to say?
I'm good.
All right. Right, we'll go on to item number 5, which is health agent updates.
Okay, so I'm going to read the stats from our public health nurse, Kathy Carney, between May 15th and today, June 20th. COVID cases under age 5, 0, age 5 to under 18, 2, and then over 18, 6. For Lyme, probable, 4, suspect, 9. Oh, sure. Babesiosis, 1. Influenza A, 3. Hepatitis B, 4. Hepatitis C, 2. Anaplasmosis, 1. And salmonellosis, 1. And then just in terms of the health department, we've started sampling the bathing beaches, so we're 2 weeks into that. Everything looks good so far, knock on wood. We're actively working on septic plan approvals, inspections, restaurant inspections. Camps and pools are in full swing, and I'll be finishing those up in the next week or two. I already mentioned the grant group and the grant money we have for going digital. The last thing I wanted to mention, so the tobacco compliance checks, we're still actively doing those. It's outsourced every 6 months, and we just got another round where there are multiple establishments that failed that. So some of them are first offense, some are second offense. And as I mentioned previously, the state does dictate these new fines. So these second offenders, it's $2,000. If there's a third offense in the next 6 months, it'll be $5,000. And so I'm thinking, depending on how the board feels, maybe a conversation about implementing some sort of rules or loss of license for a short period of time with these. It seems like these offenses it's just pay the fine and move on. And I don't know if we're getting the point across that, if they're selling to minors cigarettes, most of these are liquor stores, what's happening with that, it's just a problem. So, or I don't know if we could add in some component of education for their staff.
So are you suggesting that once they hit the 5,000 mark, the next remediation would be to take their license away for tobacco?
A period of time. I know that some of the other towns around us are starting to implement, though I know Plymouth actively is.
Okay.
and I think Kingston just passed similar. So it's just a conversation, and obviously it's not,
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but we'd have to have some type of, obviously, hearing about that
Right.
and
It would-
notify
it would-
folks. Yeah, I don't know, what do you think about, I think that
Sure.
works for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I know originally in our supplemental rules, we were progressive again with tobacco, but, you know, as things have changed and the state is really pushing for these compliance checks, we weren't able to do those for years because we lost the funding. They didn't consider us to have enough establishments, so they pulled the funds. So now, again, with the Public Health Excellence Grant Committee, we were able to use grant funds to hire the
Is it, so as you find them, do you give them education? Which is, please ask for people's IDs, but there's probably more, there's more education beyond that.
The first round, when they did their first initial compliance checks, I sent all 7 of our tobacco retailers, a letter outlining the changes that the state made,
Okay.
the new fine fee structure, and then several links to educating their staff and
Okay, so
themselves.
you've provided them
Yes.
information, okay.
So, just an
So
idea.
could we, as you're working with your peers about some other questions, could we get some sense of how, you know, maybe how they had things written up, maybe, you know, knowing that we'd have to have a hearing, so maybe some type of template of what they did so
Sure.
that we could take a look at it next month?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And I think that's everything I have.
great. Any,
Oh, sorry, I did want to mention one last thing. This year, the state has rolled out their new website for the beach postings, and I can share my screen really quickly just to show you. I have it up already, but it's on our website. Up top here under bathing beaches. And then if you just click the link, it'll take you right to the interactive dashboard, and then from there, you can just go to, those are the closures. So if you want to see all beaches, and then scroll to Duxbury. Oh, why isn't this working? Figures. It's not pulling it up for some reason, but what it's supposed to do is give all 5 of our beaches. Oh, here we go. So we have Duxbury Beach at, why can't I move this? The Bathhouse, Landing Road, if you can see it on the left. Residence Beach, Shipyard, and West End. And then if you click on each beach, it will bring up that it's open, and it should give you, I don't know why this isn't working the right way, but it should give you each week the results. For whatever reason, it was working earlier, but,
thank you.
and then you can always look at the closures too, but we'll post those should that happen. Hopefully it doesn't. And
Great,
that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for showing us how to do that. All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next meeting is July 18th. Thank you, everybody.